evening and welcome to City of Pasco Council Workshop Meeting. The council thanks you for being part of our city government. At workshop meetings, the council discusses issues, but no formal action is taken. Agenda packets are available on the City of Pasco's website at www.pasco-wa.gov/agenda. This meeting is being televised live on PSC TV Channel 191 on Spectrum Cable in Pasco and Richland, and is streamed on the city's Facebook page, website, YouTube channel, and GoToWebinar. This and previous council meeting video is available on the city's website. Lastly, the public may submit their comments and or questions by contacting the city manager, city clerk, or by using the Ask Pasco app. And with that, can I get roll call, please?
Yes. Council members Blaisdell.
She is excused if she's not online.
Thank you. Campos.
Present.
Milne.
Here.
Roach. Present. Serrano.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Brown
Present.
and Mayor Barajas.
Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for that, and then we will move on with our consent agenda. All items listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by City Council and will be enacted by roll call vote as one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If further discussion is desired by council members, the item may be removed from the consent agenda to the regular agenda and considered separately. First item, approval of meeting minutes for November 6th and November 13th. Next, bills and communications approving claims in the total amount of $6,431,171 and bad debt write-off totaling $268,603.29. Item number C, resolution number 4360, project acceptance for Argent Road Improvements Phase 2 project. Item D, resolution number 4394, declaring the City of Pasco 2024 legislative priorities. Item E, resolution number 4395, the 2024 Community Development Block Grant Work Plan and Allocations. Item F, resolution 4396, the 2024 Home Annual Work Plan and Allocation. Item G, resolution number 4397, approval of Department of Health Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, or DWSRF, construction funding application for West Pasco WTP Improvements Project. Item H, resolution 4398, approval of the Washington State Public Works Board pre-construction loan application for Butterfield WTP Improvements Project. Item I, resolution number 4399, bid award for Oregon Avenue Overlay, or SR 397 project. Item J, resolution number 4400, acceptance of work for Schlegel Park, parking lot and boat ramp improvements. And with that, can I get a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda as read.
There's a motion, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Milne. And all those in favor? Can I get it? Correct. It is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Serrano.
Yes.
Councilmember Campos.
Yes.
Councilmember Milne.
Yes.
Councilmember Roach.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brown
Yes.
and Mayor Barajas.
And with that, we will move on to our next item on the agenda, item number 5, proclamations and acknowledgements, none listed. We'll move on to item number 6, public comments. The public may address council on any items unless it relates to a scheduled public hearing. This item is provided to allow the opportunity to bring items to the attention of City Council or to express an opinion on an issue. Its purpose is not to provide a venue for debate or for the posing of questions with the expectation of an immediate response. Some questions require consideration by council over time and after a deliberative process with input from a number of different sources. Some questions are best directed to staff members who have access to specific information. Citizen comments will normally be limited to 3 minutes each by our clerk, and there's a timer there. Those with lengthy messages are invited to summarize your comments and/or submit written information for consideration by the council outside of formal meetings. And with that, I'd like to open it and invite anyone in the council chambers. If you wish to make a statement, comment, please step up to the podium, state your name and address for the record. Second call for any public comment. Third and final call for public comment. With no public comment, we will move on to our next item on the agenda, item number 7, reports from committees and/or officers. Are there any meetings, events that anyone wishes to share that you may have attended? And I'm blocking my screen here. Councilman Milne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I did attend this last week. I got kind of roped into doing the Sue's Turkey Drive there off of Court Street, and I could say that turkey drive is very well organized. We were loading boxes extremely quick. I kind of thought of that episode of I Love Lucy where she's doing the chocolates because it was like moving fast. Anyway, it was a good time, and I'm glad that we were able to put together 1,900 boxes for the community of turkeys and stuffing and potatoes. And again, it was just a really good experience, and I look forward to doing that next year, and it was good to represent on the council level.
Thank you for that. Anyone else have anything else to share? I will share. Saturday there was another turkey drive, turkey giveaway drive. This was in coordination with DoorDash, the Pasco Chamber, and it was well attended by many faith leaders. So this was organized at the Morning Star Baptist Church in East Pasco. Senator Nikki Torres was there. Representative Stephanie Bernard was there. There was a lot of celebrities there. And so it was distribution of food boxes to include turkeys or hams for everyone that attended. Not exactly sure how many food boxes or dinners, turkey dinners were distributed, but it was well attended by that community. So thank you again for the partnerships between City, DoorDash, the Pasco Chamber, and everyone that attended. I do have another quick announcement. The Arts and Culture Commission, the city is currently seeking applicants to serve on the Arts and Culture Commission. There is a vacancy for an art professional, position number 4, as well as the following positions with terms expiring on January 1st, 2024. These positions include position number 2, a community member, position number 5, an art professional, and position number 7, a youth representative. If you or anyone that you know wishes to participate in the Arts and Culture Commission, please, please, please submit your application as soon as possible. Another announcement, the Housing Authority Board of City of Pasco and Franklin County is also seeking applicants to serve in the Joint Housing Authority Board of the City of Pasco and Franklin County. The Housing Authority Board has a vacancy under position number 4 with an unexpired term to January 28, 2025. Qualifications to serve on the Arts and Culture or the Housing Commission, Housing Authority Board may be viewed on the city's website or contact the city clerk's office at 509-544-3096. Again, 509-544-3096 for some help with the, if you have any questions or help with the application itself. So again, community members, this is your time to participate and have some input on both the Arts and Culture Commission and on the Housing Authority Board. And with that, does anyone else have any announcements? We don't. So we'll move forward with our agenda. We are 7B, ad valorem tax, the property tax and general fund revenue, presentation by Director Buckley.
Good evening, Council and Mayor and council members. Tonight we are going to review the ad valorem tax, at those options associated with it, and our general fund revenues, something that we do every year. And so we're to this point in time this year to look at it all together. And we kindly have the Franklin County Assessor here to start us off with a review of how the first part of this process, which is work that the assessor's office does each year. And so I'd like to introduce Mr. Rose now, our Franklin County assessor. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, City Council, see if I got this working right. There we go. They said I could make it work, so we'll try that. I want to go over just a short brief, a little bit about the assessor's office, its responsibilities to not just the county commissioners, I should say, or the county general fund, but to all the taxing districts, of which Pasco is one of the largest. The school districts, of course, are larger. But certainly Pasco is a big part of the assessment values in this county. So the functions of the assessor's office, if you look though and kind of follow through with me on them, the first point, yeah, there it is, it's working, it's just a little slow. We physically inspect all properties, land, buildings, at least every 6 years physically. That's about 6,000 parcels a year for us to physically get out and look at every single year. We value all the properties, lands, and buildings at 100% of the market value, and that's been changing rapidly the last few years, especially the last two. And as of January 1st, we have approximately 36,000 parcels, and new construction as of July 31st at approximately 4,000 parcels that we have to do. And those are done every single year on a statistical and physical basis. We administer all of the valuation of current use and ag programs, over 3,800 parcels annually. We have to approve all the applications, the continuances, ownership transfers. We calculate any back taxes for removal of pulling people out of the agricultural current use exemption program. We perform audits on all of those, and just for 2023, that shifted over $1.5 billion in value in this county, just for 2023. We measure, sketch, verify all the characteristics and value of all new construction every year, and I really want to emphasize new construction with you, and the benefits to the city and all the taxing districts on that as we go through these slides. And a big one that most people don't understand is we serve as the guardian to prevent any taxing districts from exceeding their statutory limits of taxation. So you can ask for as much as you want in your budget. We're going to make sure that you don't go over what you're legally allowed. That's my office's responsibility. We do that for all of the taxing districts. The ownership and address maintenance of all properties and property tax billings, and those average over 280 ownership transfers every month. We administer the Senior Citizen Program, Disabled Persons and Tax Exemption Program, and in 2024, that estimation is going to be about 1,200 annual applications. We examine all financial documents. It's kind of like a mini audit. Every single year on every single one of them, they have to come to our office with all their documents, all the IRS returns, everything. We approve, maintain, and audit all the participants yearly. And that shifts approximately $1.5 million in actual taxes from their exemptions, because those taxes are still paid, but they're paid by everybody else. This year, that exemption changed. Franklin County is the highest median household income in Eastern Washington. We're at $85,000 median household income per household. That raised anybody that would qualify in this program from $44,316 last year to $61,000 this year. So that's going to be a lot more people coming in that qualify for that program. Now there's an age requirement for that, or a disability requirement, some different things, but that's a huge increase for this part of the state. We're number 6 out of 39 counties, highest median income in the state. We're number 6. So personal property, farm and commercial, we have over 2,700 accounts and they have to file those annually. Some of those individual accounts have over 1,000 line items that we audit every single year, line by line, out of our staff. And then we maintain all those accounts, auditing on them. So the levy calculations, which is huge for that, we have 22 separate taxing agencies. We have 37 different geographical taxing districts because a bunch of them overlap. Pasco's one of them. And we have 2 TIF areas now. Pasco, of course, has one and the port has a TIF area. Building permits, we import monthly from all the municipalities and the county, and that's over 235 a month. And that actually works towards the new construction valuation, which is huge for what I will show you for the city. We do all the state utility valuations, so we import all the calculations and percentages that would have to do with state utilities. For anything that crosses county lines and state lines, like the railroads, the airlines, the gas and oil pipelines, your major internet providers, all of those we have to calculate. We balance those valuations every single year. All nonprofit exemptions, we have to keep track of that. So that if there's any nonprofit that there's properties exempt, we keep track of those. And then all the geographical information systems. Number 2 right there is we process all land segregations and subdivisions, and Pasco's had a bunch with their annexations lately, with over 530 new parcels average annually, and most of those have new rooftops. That's just for those segregation pieces on that. And then, of course, we do assist the city, other counties, other agencies, law firms, planning departments, and that. And then, of course, the big one for the city is we process the annexations. We review those. We let the city know whether or not they've met the criteria to be able to annex that. I either approve it or I reject it. And I have rejected some in the past couple of years, but the city's always found the documents that they need for me and gotten it right back. So that's a good thing. So this is the assessed value curve. The left hand goes all the way up to $16 billion. The right hand side is, well, the line is going to show you from the years down below. You'll be able to see how much the increase in valuation in Franklin County. Some of that is because land just becomes more valuable. Some of it is brand spanking new construction that has added to these numbers and grown them year over year. The little green line, right up here, we were just under 14 billion for this year. For next year, which we just are finishing those results, we'll be at over 16 billion in assessed value in this county. That's a huge increase and growth. So some people say the office is overassessed and we're way out of line on what our assessments are. So we get audited every single year by the state Department of Revenue. They audit to find out if we are in line with the assessed values, or if we're way under assessing or way over assessing. They evaluate and they go through hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of parcels and sales, in fact, way over 1,000. I just got those results where people were thinking we were way out of whack. We're at 91.3%. We didn't even make 100%, even with the raises the last couple of years on what we've been doing. 91.3% on our audit. So statutorily says we're supposed to be at 100% of market value. Now, with the market moving constantly, and as rapidly as it is, it's a near impossibility, but we do the best we can. Yes?
Good question. When you're talking about the assessed value, I know I had questions on mine because I was shocked to what it came to, and
Yes.
I did talk to the office. They walked me through it. Your staff was very well informative. Do you have Spanish speakers to help people through as far as bilingual employees to help?
I have a bilingual employee.
Okay.
I have attempted to hire others, but you have to have them apply for the positions. You have to have the positions open. And I will talk about positions tonight as well.
Okay, I'm saying
So-
if you didn't know, you'd be very upset, and I was upset until actually we walked through it and
Yes,
they came out
and we literally have numerous bilingual in the county courthouse itself, and we've had several of the other departments have offered, and people come down. We've had from the Office of Public Defense, from the Auditor's Office, Commissioner's Office, people that speak Spanish have been more than willing to come in and help translate. We find most of the people bring in a family relative because they helped them understand what it was that they got in the first place a little bit, and then they come in. So, but we absolutely will do everything we can, David, to make sure that we communicate with everybody, not just in Spanish. I've got, I've had employees that speak the different Russian or dialects and Chechnya, Vietnamese. We've got that in our office. So we certainly try to accommodate as much as we can, as best we can.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for the
You bet.
clarification.
So this next graph will show you assessed value versus levy rate. And this is extremely important. I know that Darcy's going to be talking to you about the levy rates, and I've got some other charts. But if you look at the bottom green and the up curve to it over the years from 2010, it was just above 4 billion, about 5 billion, close to 5 billion in 2009, 2010. And now if you take a look at assessed values, it says preliminary there. It's way up over 16 billion if you look at the left one going across to the right. Now, if you look at the blue, what I'll call a gold, and the top dark green. The top dark green is the primary Pasco District 101 levy rates. And as you see, it came across holding pretty steady at just over $12, $13 per thousand until about the year 2017, 2018, right in there where it had a tremendous drop. And then it held steady again. Part of that steady reason is because of the McCleary decision that happened in 2012, went into effect with the House Bill 2242 in 2018, and you'll see how it went steady there, and that had to do with funding of the schools. But the United States Supreme Court in 2012 said, legislature, you have to do something, and they did, and so it held the schools instead of them being on a budget base where they have to go no more than say 1% of their budget, so forth. They had a rate base, so as assessed values went up, they got lots more money fast on that. So then it started back down, and you'll see if you go to like 2017 and go up, you're going to see that the city of Pasco was about $12 for every $1,000 of assessed value. And in 2022 to 2023, they're down real close to just above $8 for every thousand. So as assessed values have gone up, the levy rates have gone down on the amount that people pay per thousand, but their per thousands have increased. So it's not an exact. If your property values went up 20%, your taxes didn't go up 20% because you can see the downturn of how much the levy rates went down. And I'll let you ask questions as we get in here. This then is new construction. The top green one is all new construction for the county. I don't have the cities independently broke out here on this chart. The very, very top peak of this one is that little black line right there. And you can see this massive increase. So in 2021, for 2022, we were in the entire county at about $285 million in new construction for the whole county. And I do have the city's numbers that you'll see in a moment. Last year, we're $560 million. We more than doubled in 1 year the amount of new construction. And there was about 1,300 parcels of my office could not get to. There was just too much coming in with the staff that I've got. Already this year, the county is at 581 million, more than the 560 last year. And there's about 10%, and I'll show you your numbers here. There's about 10% that was left on the table that we couldn't get to because I didn't have the staffing. Now, my staffing is provided by the county commissioners in our budget. But my services and my responsibilities and my statutory obligation is to all 22 of those taxing districts, of which Pasco is one. And just to throw a dollar figure out at you, if you were to take all the new construction, which Darcy will go over with you, that probably shorted this coming year, the city of Pasco, at least $80,000 for your budget, because I couldn't get the new construction done. I'm just being straight honest, straight up front. You need to know that. Cost the county probably 60, 70,000, cost you more. And there's a reason for that. Because if you look at these charts here, and the second to the last, the actual levy rates, this shows the levy rate per thousand for just the city of Pasco. And you're now down to $1.28 per thousand. You were $1.46. Remember what I said, as assessed value goes up, it will drive levy rates down. Part of that has to do, and Darcy's going to cover, I'm sure, the bank capacities, because back in 2018, you had almost $2 million in bank capacity, and you used almost every bit of it. So it took the levy rates at that time, because you'd been saving it up and not using all of your bank capacity or capability of your budget monies. So it turned around and raised you from $1.74 to $1.93 in 1 year on levy rates, because you used that bank capacity all of a sudden. So if you don't use your bank capacity year after year, you will lose some money if the assessed values are going up and your levy rates are continuing down. I believe you're going to show $1.18 to $1.13, or $1.08 to $1.13. Is that correct? So some of what she will show you today, there's about a 5-cent difference whether or not you use this 596,000 down here in your 1%. If you take that 596,000 and all of that, then your levy rate, your rate will go down, I think, to about $1.13. I'll let you cover it, Darcy. If you don't, you're down to like $1.08 because you're not using it all, and that's a 5-cent
I'll
per
interrupt you.
thousand that you may lose.
So, sorry to interrupt you. I want to backtrack to staffing. I know you haven't completely got there yet. If I'm correct, there was a loss because there was not enough staffing.
The loss because we could not get all the new construction done. The reason we didn't get the new construction done is because of inadequate staffing. And that is only accomplished by budget requests to the county commissioners that get billed. Last year I requested another appraiser. It got denied. This year I'm requesting another appraiser. I do not know if it'll get approved in the budget for this next year or not. But there's 2 years that all taxing districts lost income from new construction because we couldn't get it all done. You cannot go back and pick it up. Once it's lost, it's lost.
Understood. So where I'm going is, so if you're not getting the approval, Mr. Ferguson, stay with me here. If you're not getting the approval from the commissioner's office, is there an ask coming from the city?
Is there an
regarding
ask?
staffing? Is there?
Well, the county commissioners would love the city to put forth some money for it, but you're under no statutory obligation to do so. I just want to be straight up front. You're under no statutory obligation to do that. The county commissioners, by statute, are to fund my office, which is then to provide the service to all taxing districts and entities, okay? That's a statutory obligation my office has. Now, the TIF, that's different. That statute says that you may reimburse my office. And clear back when Richa was the finance director and that, we talked, and Adam and I've talked, you will get a bill from me for the TIF portion of it, for that. But that is a direct reimbursement for only my direct expenses on your TIF parcels only. And that'll be each year. So if I was to say council, okay, if you happen to know people in the county commissioner's office and you want to make them a personal phone call to say you need to consider that in the budget, then I would be much appreciated, because I can only do what I can do. So, and I'm not begging for money from you at all, not asking for that. I'm just giving you what my responsibilities are, my statutory obligations, and hoping that the county commissioners will fill those.
No, you did good. Just
Okay.
it was just a good point of clarification
Yes.
because
Glad you asked
if
that.
we can help each other, why not, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, thank
yeah.
you.
And certainly, you know, if you untied Adam's hands and said, Adam, would you contact them and say, hey, help us? I wouldn't mind that at all. So there's my lobbying for the night. Is that fair? Okay, Adam knew that was coming, so did Darcy, I'm sure, to a degree. But what I want you to understand is, if you look over here at assessed values, clear back at 2009, the city's assessed values was 2.8 billion. Down for 2024, the assessed values are 12 billion. Last year they were 9. That's how much of an increase with new construction and everything. Here you had the city's part of that new construction, 499 billion last year, or million, million, and this year 539 million. So, and there's at least 10% on this year's left on the table there. So you take that, maybe a little more, but let's say you take 10%, that's 53.9 thousand, 53,900 times $1.28. Okay? And that is the loss for your item. Now, that's not a one-time. That money goes into your budget, and it now gives you a new highest lawful budget amount that you build on the next year and build on the next year. So it continues to grow on there. And then we do have the actual highest lawful, and then we show the amount you actually levied, the amount you asked for, and then we show what you have for bank capacity. And I'll let Darcy cover that better. So this is just simply a graph that shows Pasco's up here of the entire assessed values and monies that are collected to disperse out. Pasco's about 10.79%. The county is 10.17 for its operating expenses. If you look at the blue, dark blue, light blue, come over here to, I'll call it salmon or pink, and then up here to kind of a light green, those are just the school's percentages of all the monies collected. That's what the schools are, and then you can see all the smaller ones. The school one here does not include the school bond that was passed. That will be in next year's, and it will change that 17.93, of course. Okay? So just some quick ones. I threw this up just so that it's up here long enough that people can freeze it on YouTube or whatever they watch it on and see. The big one is down here in, we had 2 of them. You ended up in 2001 changing from anybody being able to get the 6% on top of their budget every year to 1. And then in 2014, it changed to where we had to assess real value properties, 100% of them, every single year. We used to have to only do it like every 4, every 6. We statistically have to do everything every year, and physically we have to get out to 1/6 of the parcels physically and take new pictures and double check measurements and that. So with that, I'll just say, is there any other questions? I'll stick around in case there are some on the levy thing, but Darcy understands it very, very well. We've met more than once. So,
Thank you for the presentation. Do we have any questions?
Mr. Roosevelt, looking at that couple slides earlier, what is the largest contributor in the county between 2023 and 2024 to the increase of assessed value? Is that just new construction, or is there a different agricultural use that's happening out in the county?
assessed value, the biggest thing is what we follow the market. So what people are paying for properties is what we follow. And we have to stop that as of January 1st of each year. So last year, what properties were selling for and what they would be valued at as of January 1st of this year, that was our stop dead date. And we compare all the 22 sales and we look at the trend of how much is that growing each month? If something sold in January, what would it have been selling for in November and December? And then what is it worth January 1st? So we have to look at those things and adjust that. So a big one is how much property increased. Just in my neighborhood, I watched property increase over 30% in 1 year. Now, all of us kind of be used to maybe a 5 to 10% increase in property values. That hasn't been happening. Even with the slowdown, when we track from January till now, we are seeing a very slight up and down movement for Franklin County compared to other parts of the state. We were not taking a decline in values, actual sale values, to assess values, even as of January 1, when some of the counties in the state were seeing it the previous October. So to give you kind of an example, when the big balloon bubble break happened in 2008, 2009, if you take a look, in March of 2009 was one of the biggest years of property devaluing, okay, and the hit. There was one county in the entire western United States of Arizona, Nevada, California, Oregon, Washington, Idaho, one county that still had a year over year by that month increase in property value. Franklin County. Nobody else even had it. And we're seeing that same trend here. Benton County was turned down to maybe decreasing by 1.5%, and we were still seeing a 3% increase in this county this year on that. That's not to say there hasn't been a softening. There has, but it changes from month to month, and we won't stop what that trend is. We won't look at what is the final conclusion of that till January 1st of 2024 to evaluate the 2025's taxes. We set 2022's market as of January 2023 to set the 2024's taxes. It's always lags behind, so we follow the market. Hopefully that, Councilwoman, that answered your question.
I think I have a follow-up question to
Sure.
it, which is when you say assessed value of property, are you talking about developed property as well as undeveloped property? And then
All.
residential, commercial, every type of
Everything.
use?
Yep, everything whatsoever. And you can see by the amount of new construction, we're at 499 and now over 500 million. That's a straight add in addition to whatever property values may have changed. That's just new construction for the city.
Okay, so that first column, I think it was the slide right there, yep, that's the one, so but the first column, assessed value column, 23 and 24, I mean, does some of that contribution have to, having like an Amazon and?
So you would take a percentage, yeah. If you look at 23 to 24, you've got there less than 3 billion change, correct? Say
Right.
2.7, 2.6 billion. Of that, 499 and 539 is just new construction.
In Pasco? Or
Yes,
in
that's
the
just
county?
the city limits. That's
the
the
city
city of
limits.
Pasco only, new construction. And yes, Amazon last year was part of that 499, but it wasn't completed. And as the next year, we go back and we pick up the percentage that wasn't complete from the previous one. So if something's 5% complete, we value that 5% and you get the new construction for that. At the next year, if it's then 100% complete, you get the new value of construction, the difference, and it increases that. Now, that also includes Darigold, which she's going to cover, because you don't get the money from that because that's the port's TIF, same as the county doesn't. So there's, out of that 539, there's probably 130-ish that was Darigold increase value on new construction.
Thank you, that helps me.
Okay. Yeah.
Councilman Serrano, do you have any questions?
No, I don't believe so. I appreciate Mr. Rosenau's enthusiasm for this, and you know it's 10:40 here, so I'm trying to stay awake with the numbers.
Okay, well, with
But
no
thank
further
you.
questions, thank you. Oh,
A
Councilman
quick
Melny.
question for you, John. So I did have a kind of question on the semantics of it. So say you have a 2,000 square foot house in East Pasco and you have a 2,000 square foot house in West Pasco. Do you guys just look on like, you know, Zillow or some of the other ones to look at the house, or do you actually send somebody out and look at the neighbors to
So
evaluate the house?
once every 6 years, we physically look at every property. So we've got the county broke into 6 pieces, and we, every year, 1/6 of the county is physically, we drive out to it, we take pictures, we do measuring if there's changes, all of those things, okay? There's been special upgrades and that. Building permits, we do every year if there's been building permits, no matter where it is, not even if it's the 1/6. The rest of it is statistically done based upon market sales, let's say in those neighborhoods. So certainly we're not comparing a neighborhood in Colotus to a neighborhood along the river. I'll use that as two real extremes. Is that good for the county? Because the neighborhoods, they don't sell the same. So we've got lots of neighborhoods, let's say over 100 and some neighborhoods that we have. And we first look at those neighborhoods and we go even deeper. It has to be similar size homes, like styles, which would be, we don't take a 2-story or tri-level and compare it to a single level. We don't take a basement and compare it to a 2-story. We look at condition and quality of the type of construction, how well is it built, and then the condition of it, and then also how old it is for depreciation based on that condition. And all of those are done for each neighborhood area. Now, is there times where we will have to reach over to a neighboring neighborhood because there isn't enough sales to get a good comparison in that neighborhood? Absolutely. Neighborhoods butt up against one another. I live just up above the airport. Well, there's 2 big neighborhoods right there. They basically sell for the same price. It's just a matter of there's 2 neighborhoods there, in that. So certainly something right along the river will be different value than something in the Clark Addition, or even over here, over on the eastern side of town or downtown. So we're very meticulous in neighborhoods, quality, condition, depreciation, age, style. All of those are taken in consideration, really deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. I just know that I heard a lot of negative this year, and people were very.
That's why I told you guys what the state audit after we got all done, 91.3. We did not overvalue the property. Appeals that are going to the Board of Equalization right now, we're over 98% sustaining our value. Okay. So, which is huge percentages, on that, because we've got the data to back it up. It may not be fun, but again, if it went up that percentage, doesn't mean your taxes are going up by that, because it'll drive levy rate down. I took way more time than Darcy gave me. She knows me.
I have one more question.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenau, you mentioned that due to the lack of staffing, that was it 60 or 80,000 that was left on the table for the city?
But yours would be 59,000 or 50. I'll give you exactly what it was right there. You're at $53,963.74 times 1.28.
Sorry, where are you pointing at? I'm not.
So down here, when you take a look at new construction value, okay, you divide that by 1,000, and then you multiply by your levy rate. As that levy rate goes down, it'll lower that. The year before, it was at $1.46. Year before that, $1.68. You can see the trend for the city. Of course, right here, it kind of froze at about $1.90. Then $1.80, $1.74. You took all the bank because you saved it up, went back to $1.93. Then it started back down the levy rate. And you've seen some real drops, 180 to 168 to 146 to 128, because of the assessed value increases in the city.
Okay, so part of that is not just staffing, it's because of the decrease in levy rate.
That's what gives you the decrease in levy rate. But the staffing piece of it is there's about 10% of this 539 million, okay, that would have probably been increased. Let's say it would have been 600 million, and you've been taking the 600 times $1.28 instead of a 539 times $1.28. So whatever that difference is, I'm just estimating it by looking at it here of about 53,900 times $1.28. That would have went to increase your budget, and it would have stayed there. Like your highest lawful stays there, then moves up from there. So, and believe me, we worked almost 2 months extra beyond what the Department of Revenue wants us to do to be able to get that much of it done on there. So I have 2 staff members more than what we had in the 1960s. How much have we grown since then?
Wow.
Is that a fair statement? Okay, so I'll leave it at that.
clarifications and responding to the questions.
Okay?
Darcy?
Very much. Well, so we'll turn the rest of this presentation over to city-focused information. As Mr. Rosenau explained, the assessor's office is an important part of this process, and they start us off with information, and then we assess it and review, and I'll go through some slides that show you the different options that are available for council's decision, and then after that, we give information back to the assessor's office to certify our levy amount. So I'm going to look in this presentation, we'll go over general fund, the sources of revenue, and kind of how those are faring so far in the biennium, and highlight that, and then move to the property value calculation. So, the city, of course, receives revenue from many sources, and to fulfill many purposes. There are special revenue funds and construction funds, internal services, and utilities. And all those other funds supply or gain revenue for a specific purpose and keep those revenues and expenses isolated and segregated to make sure that rates and revenues support the work that's being done. But the general fund receives revenue from other sources that aren't necessarily always rate supplied. Most of it is, or a large portion of it is taxes, I should say. The general fund is about, let's see, move here. Oh, so the general fund has service areas from the revenue that we receive, and that is how this work that most people would consider government purposed work gets completed. And so each this slide you can see the different departments that are funded through the general fund. There are things like police department and fire department, our parks and recreation and facilities, and then other departments that support those functions that I think if you ask most people, what does the city provide, they might not know or not think about finance or human resources, but there's internal service funds that or efforts, I should say, that support the service areas of the general fund that people know more about. So the general fund, as we assess how much revenue the city receives for the general fund and the needs of the general fund, we have to compare revenues and expenses. And the purpose of this slide is to have a visual representation of how things have changed over the past few bienniums. The first set of numbers is starting in 2019, 2020, and the blue columns are expenses, the red column, or the red, the kind of brown column is revenues. And you can see that there's a trend line there on the top that shows that both the revenues and expenses are converging. Council is aware that in the last biennium we added quite a few positions, and so that is one of the reasons those lines are coming closer to each other. And then also for our prior biennium, our revenue was high related to sales tax and construction, and also really the impact of COVID was opposite of what we expected. There was actually quite a bit of spending that occurred in the community, and that helped push other sales taxes. And so the expense escalation is greater than the revenue growth in this biennium, the current biennium we're in, by about 15%. The city is working on a long-term general fund plan to help stretch out that vision and view so we can plan for the future. And so as time passes, we'll come back to council with that information as well. Oh, there we go. Okay, drilling down deeper into the general fund, there's many sources of revenue, as I noted, and we're going to flip through slides that talk about those. But the largest revenue comes from taxes, and the pie chart, of course, shows the various slices of revenue sources. But taxes is the about 59% of general fund revenues, and the table outlines what taxes make up those revenues. Retail sales tax is 24.8%, and then we also have retail sales tax that was voter approved for the specific purpose of public safety and criminal justice. So when we receive those revenues, they are spent in that fashion. And then we have property tax, which is one of the focuses of our review tonight. That's about 14% of our general fund revenue, and then utility tax and other revenues. So here is, we're going to step through the different types of revenues. The first one is property tax revenue. Budgetarily, we expect this revenue will meet expectations. As Mr. Rosenau explained earlier, and we're going to see some more information on this later, but the composite rate, which is made of the many jurisdictions within the city of Pasco, not just the funds the city receives, was in 2023 $8.292 per $1,000 of assessed value. And so for a home valued at $360,000, you can see there on the slide that the city of Pasco would receive about $463, and there's just a comparison of local jurisdictions that are close by for reference to see that Pasco's is at this point in time, or in 2023 was smaller than the other two cities, and this revenue source is consistent, which is important to kind of consider as we go through and make decisions about how the general fund receives revenue. This outlines, this table shows of that $8.29 where the funding goes to. So you can see if I was paying my tax bill, 40% of it would go to Pasco School District, and then another 30% goes to the state of Washington for school purposes. The city of Pasco receives 15%, and then it moves on down with smaller percentages. I know it's easy to get your bill and not recognize that the revenue that you supply goes to many different jurisdictions, not just the city of Pasco. So that's the purpose and the intent of this slide, to just show what community amenities benefit from those dollars. Retail sales tax, that's been a focus of both our general fund reviews through the year, each month, and continue to follow that closely. The tax rate is 8.9%, and of that 8.9%, the city receives 0.85%, so a very small percentage of it. It is variable and different than the property tax revenue. It can change quite a bit from year to year depending on the economy. Currently, our sales tax revenue received is lower than we anticipated at this point in time in the year. However, a lot of when we budgeted at the end of last year, we expected to have a lot of construction sales tax tied to various projects, including the school district projects, Dairy Gold, Local Bounty, Tarragon, and a handful of permitted housing development work. And so we continue to expect to see that come in. It's just the timing is not matching where we are so far in the biennium. So we'll continue to review and assess that as time passes. The one important thing to consider is retail sales tax, especially related to construction sales tax. We want to think about matching those one-time revenues with one-time usage oftentimes, so that we make sure that we don't fund ongoing revenue like salaries or labor costs that happen year after year after year with revenues that might not happen year after year after year. And then this is the slide that's associated with the public safety and criminal justice sales tax that we receive. It is a meeting budgetary expectations, and similar to the other sales tax, the city gets a percentage of the tax that is collected. Utility tax, if you pay a utility bill at all, whether it's a city utility bill or outside utility like the PUD, there's a utility tax associated with it. Those revenues are a revenue of the general fund and help support general fund purposes. At this point in time of the year, we are meeting budgetary expectations. And then there's other tax that we receive, which also is meeting budgetary expectation. And those things are gambling tax, admissions tax, and leasehold tax. And so the one thing that you can see from the table is that it can vary, this revenue source can vary widely depending upon the choices people make and how they're spending their money, and just also probably the economy. The first year is our bar is for 2019, 2020 during the pandemic. And so with everything being shut down, the tax decreased significantly, or the collection of those taxes. But the next biennium, which was our prior biennium, they came back very strong. And so now we have a lower budget and are expected to meet it, but it's higher than 2019, 2020. Licenses and permits. The city does charge licenses and permitting fees related to animal license and some building permits. At this point in time in the year for this biennium, building permit revenue is lagging about 12%, and that is tied to primarily the count of building permits. We've had high value building permits, but less volume. So we'll continue to watch as the year goes on and see if we need to make any amendment for 2024. But right now, we're not too concerned about that. And then intergovernmental revenue includes state shared revenues, PUD privilege tax, fee, and grants that the city receives. So it can vary from year to year or biennium to biennium based on especially those grants or things that aren't necessarily repeated from year to year. The second period for the 2021-2022 was influenced by CARES grant, and so those revenues that came in bumped that up. But as far as budget, we are meeting our expectation thus far. Charges for services are a multitude of different activities. Of course, there's many services the city supplies that we don't explicitly charge for, like if you had an unfortunate event of a fire at your house, you don't get a bill for that. That would be that's a government service we expect to be paid through tax revenue. But there are some services that we directly charge, and those are things like parks and recreation activities, where our school resource officers support the school districts. There's a revenue that's associated with that. Fire protection at the airport is similar. We get we charge a fee to provide that service to the airport, and then things like utility billing, miscellaneous fees. And here we also are meeting expectation. The one exception is plan check fees, which is our little lagging, similar to the permit fees, and they're kind of associated with each other, but still doing well. As far as fines and penalties, they're a little lower budgetarily, but we do anticipate meeting that budget. We just planned that they would be lower. And then miscellaneous items are things like interest income, rent for various parks, rents, facilities, and other rentals of facilities that the city owns that other people use, various reimbursements, donations, and included in this category for this biennium were property sales that the city anticipated making of property that we own. But right now, we do have some sales planned, or in the works, I should say, maybe is a better way to say it. But there's a high probability that we won't be able to meet the target. Our budget appears to have been higher than the sales that'll occur in this biennium. So we're continuing. That's something that we'll have to address. And the one bright spot in this area is interest income. While it is unfortunate that interest rates are high in many areas where we have excess funds that we can invest, we have been able to have gains in interest income. So that's offsetting some shortfalls, and we're thankful for that. So we'll delve a little deeper into property tax in Washington State. And as you know, Mr. Rosenau gave a lot of information that was helpful. It's also called ad valorem tax, but I think most people just call it property tax. We have the opportunity and the choice to raise our levy each year by 1% or the value of inflation, which is expressed by the implicit price deflator, the lesser of the one or the other. And this year, the measurement date is always September 25th of a year. And so this year on September 25th, the implicit price deflator was 3.67%. So definitely over that 1%. So our limit would be 1%. We did talk, or Mr. Rosenau pointed out the element of bank capacity. Should the city not, and we have done this in the past, not take the 1%, then we can bank our capacity. There are pros and cons to that choice. The value of the bank capacity, if it's not assessed, will just sit in wait, and the assessor's office keeps track of that for us, and then we can recapture that in a future year so that we do collect that property tax revenue later. Banking the capacity does allow us to, it does keep that rate a little lower, but it's very small. And then the cons is that it does not maintain historical value. So every time we take the full value, we make our highest lawful levy higher, and then that just increases the 1% we could take the next year. So if we don't take the bank capacity, that just won't have that effect. And then bank capacity could be taken away from the city at any time. We did have a little snafu a few years ago where there was just an error that resulted in us having to go back and do a lot of work to recover that bank capacity with the Department of Revenue's office. So it's something that we definitely are concerned about, that if we take bank capacity, that it's monitored very closely and carefully to make sure we don't lose that availability in the future.
Darcy, if I can add to that, Council, with Mr. Rosenau here, losing that bank capacity is something that could be very much out of county's hands, city's hands, and the last time we went through that effort, it took us 2 years of extensive work to be able to show that Department of Revenue was being heavy-handed. I do not know how to say it more nicely. In there, yes, there were some clerical errors, but to take away at that time $1.7 million in property taxes a year from the city, which if we were not able to fix that situation, we would have lost $1.6 million every year for the rest of the city's life. And when Mr. Rosenau mentions $80,000, unless he's planning to capture that for next year, and I'm really hoping he is, what it basically means.
We lose it if we don't get it this year.
Okay, well that's not something I was hoping to hear. But what that essentially means is it's $80,000 every year times 1% of that increase that is allowed for the remainder of the city's life. And so I do want everyone to be aware of those numbers. It feels like, 80,000, it's here or there, especially when we're talking about millions, but it is billions for the life of Pasco. And similarly, as we bank it, we do have to be very aware of the risks that exist in banking it. Staff does its best. We can make errors. At the city side, county does its best. They can make errors. And then there's the state factor who comes in and takes a look at this error. And they basically reversed $1.6 million in bank capacity in the last in the last go around because of a simple clerical error. So we were able to argue that, but it took us 2 years to figure out that was the reason. And so I just want to give you a little bit of a history and experience and what lies ahead with banking capacity. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on, and we'll talk a little bit
So
more
if I
about.
may interject, I mean, how often has that happened to the city of Pasco or other municipalities that we're aware of? Obviously, we've heard one instance, but how often does that happen where the banking capacity is removed by external forces?
Quite well, the couple of cities that I've talked to, that has happened to them, but not to the extent that it happened to us, to the city. And the reason for that is there's not as many cities who had banked. The city of Pasco had banked capacity for a long time. So that's most of the cities do not bank capacity on a regular basis. So it happens regularly, but the scale for the city of Pasco, not as much.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
So as you can see, there's another assessed value and tax rate table here. Mr. Rosenau shared one for the county. This is the cities, and you can see the rate is the green line that is, or excuse me, the assessed value is the green line that is increasing, and then the rate is the orange line that is declining, and it has gone from down to 1.29. This is rounded up instead of the 1.287. I don't remember what the trailing numbers are, but and the recapture of that bank capacity is there at that little tiny peak that it jumps up and then goes back down. But it does highlight that as assessed value goes up, the rate does start to drive down very quickly. This is the calculation that I think has all the pieces and parts that we've kind of talked about all on one page. You'll see, I'll try to navigate us through it a little bit. The highest lawful levy is the amount of money that the city lawfully could set as our budget to have the county assessor collect from taxpayers. It's that $13,152 million. And then we look at the levy that we did actually approve in 2023, which is the lower number, the $12,556,000, so that we could. That's how we've come to that rate of 1.288. Now, starting to move into 2024, we're here at council to show you the new numbers that will affect what rate is chosen. And so those are starting with that levy, because that's always our starting point of what we issued or certified for last year, where we start at the same spot. If we had no increase, which is one column over, we estimate the state utility valuation is about $20,000. The new construction, which was outlined before, that is the dollar value of that new construction, so $694,804. And then that gets us to our new levy value and would drive the rate down because of the increasing assessed value to $1.07 per thousand assessed value. the tax increment financing does make a difference with how much money we collect. We still levy the full value, but the port's portion, which is the $173,000, is not provided to the city. That goes to the port to help pay off their TIF area. And then the city's portion we would set aside to pay for improvements in our TIF area. So the part that would be dedicated to the general fund is that line that says city general purpose collection. And the increase in collection between 2023 and 2024 would be the $519,000 and $710. I should add it all there. But as we move one column over, that's a 1% increase. So you can see that 1% increase is the value of a 1% increase of $131,528, and everything else stays the same. So the bottom number bumps up by that $131,000 of city collection. And then finally, the 1% plus the bank capacity outlines or includes both or all things: the value of the 1% increase, the new construction, a recapture of the bank capacity, and then so that we captured all the revenue that is available to the city. One thing important about the bank capacity, about that is important to talk about, is when we talk about the new construction value that does not get picked up, while that number will make this calculation smaller. Every year, as Mr. Rosenau pointed out, it's lost. Once it's lost, it's not added back into the calculation. So there's a accumulating effect of leaving some on the table, and then the next year, if there's some left on the table, it's those two amounts that don't get into the assessed value, and so it kind of has this building effect over the years. Okay, and so this is another same slide, a little bit more information. You can see, since we have not yet determined the 2024 levy, here you can see the rate per assessed value as the different options are evaluated. No increase makes the rate drop right about 20%. If my eyes are good, or 20 cents, excuse me. My eyes are good. I look a little closer. About 20 cents. 1% gets it still. We go up a penny from the no increase, and then 1% plus banked is, as Mr. Rosenau quoted earlier, $1.13 per thousand assessed value, and you can outline right below that is the cost of to a property owner at a $360,000 valued home. And so in 2023, the total cost or the revenue that was received by the city was $464, and that was the burden on the taxpayer. And then across the different options, you can see the burden for all three is lower than it was in 2023, which is a good outcome. And then there's also these collection comparison information for the other jurisdictions that we often compare ourselves to, and they're close by. And Pasco remains the smallest by far. Bank capacity, we've talked about it a couple of times. You can see the impact of how much our highest lawful levy has changed over the past 4 years. And then the element of what we're losing is this uncollected new construction, the dollar value that gets left behind because because we bank it and don't collect that to offset revenues or expenses in the coming year. And then this is the new construction calculation. Oh, you can't see what I'm pointing at. The new construction calculation that's uncollected there. So over the 4 past years, we haven't collected about $44,000. And then the banked capacity, you can see how the bank capacity builds year after year, so that right now we have a little over $500,000 uncollected. And each time we do that, the other thing that is happening on the is annual inflation is increasing, so we leave the dollar value doesn't necessarily reflect the impact on the general fund because of the cost of services growing greater than that 1% also. As we move into 2023 and 2024, there have been some changes that will affect our budget, and those things are worth considering in this decision about the revenue needs of the general fund. Those things are the debt service for Fire Station 85. While it was included in the budget, it was a little bit higher than we originally expected. And then we did add with the bond issuance funds for Memorial Pool and the Animal Shelter Annex improvements and Gisa Stadium also. And so that greater debt service will rise to about another $434,000 in expenses. And also during the creation of the 2023-2024 budget, we did not anticipate the city assuming the work of the Pasco Specialty Kitchen and the farmers market. And so those increases are not in the budget at this time and will make an impact on the expenses of the general fund. And then finally, as we've moved more into being the operating agency for the animal control facility and to reflect the full service nature of the facility, that will require some funds from the general fund that weren't included in the budget that we set at the end of last year. As we move further out, there are things that are that the city staff is aware of that will make a difference on general fund needs, and some of those items are, we've talked about just higher inflationary impact related to fuel and utilities and supplies. That right now, that pressure is felt, and if it continues, we may have to increase the budget, and that would make it a difference in 2024 and moving forward. And then debt service for the Broadmoor tax increment financing area has not yet been issued. There is definitely a time lag between when we do issue the debt and when construction and that assessed value grows. And so for a time, the general fund will need to support that debt service through ongoing revenues or revenues not directly tied to the TIF. So that's something that's in our planning effort important about how do we have the funds in the general fund to support that as development occurs. And then also, as council is aware, we added positions through the SAFER grant in this biennium. Right now, the SAFER grant still covers those employees, but the grant funding lasts for about 3 years, and so at the end of the 3 years, the general fund will need to pick up a portion of those employees. The ambulance fund pays for the other expenses tied to those additions. So the next steps are, it is necessary that the city set the levy by an ordinance and deliver it to Franklin County on November 30th. In past years, we've brought this information to the council a little sooner, but as Mr. Rosenau outlined, their department or their department worked hard and spent extra time gathering new construction information, so that pushed this presentation back a little bit, and I apologize that there's not a lot more time. But it is something that needs to happen. We need to certify the levy amount and get that to the assessor's office so that they can levy taxes for next year. And we will be back on November, this next meeting, and with council to evaluate that and ask for your decision. And if you have any questions, ready for that now.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for a thorough presentation. We do have some questions. Councilwoman Roach.
Director Buckley, I'm gonna try my best. I'm not a finance person. So what I'm understanding is that you are saying, at the very beginning of your presentation, that we are right now, in our general fund, 15%. The trend is that we are 15% behind on our revenue than anticipated.
The revenue that we budgeted was 15% less than the expenses. So we purposefully, as part of the budget, planned to spend more money than in 1 year than revenues that we received. We used ending fund balance or our reserves to help support that spending. And tied to that was about $5 million was related to TIF debt service, which we have not issued the debt yet. And then some capital purchases that were needed and one time. So that won't, all those expenses won't continue moving forward, but some of them will. Most importantly, the staffing expenses. So we, as part of the general fund long-term plan, are looking at those kind of elements of which things of this biennium were one time, as we look in future years, what things are ongoing costs and how to marry ongoing revenues and ongoing costs so we make sure our budget is balanced.
You brought up capital expenses and being at $5 million. Are you referring to the farmer's market and specialty kitchen, or is that separate?
No, not that. We had planned capital spending in the budget for a myriad of reasons. That there were some technology expenses. There were other planned items that are in the CIP or the budget that come from a product of the capital improvement plan that the general fund was supporting. So those were planned spendings. The $5 million I mentioned was for debt service when we issue the tax incremental financing debt, which we have not yet done. So, but the general fund would need to support that as that development grows. The revenues will be received after the debt is issued. So, does that
That's
help?
a question mark as when that development happens and when that debt is then collected. So there's not a known time frame of when collection of that 5 million TIF investment comes back to the city.
No, not necessarily. It has to
Okay.
do with how fast development occurs in the TIF area. We will, once we issue the debt, we'll know what the interest and principal is that's due each year. So we'll know the expense side, but when Mr. Rosenau's office goes out and they look at new construction and they value the assessed value in the TIF area, that growth in the TIF area will make the difference of new revenues to the city.
Okay. And in 2024, just please help refresh my memory here with Pasco Specialty Kitchen and the Farmers Market. That wasn't anticipated when we created the biennium budget, but now we absorbed it into the city's budget. Did we amend our budget at any point to include that into the general fund, or are we anticipating doing that in the future?
Next week, I will be back and you'll get to hear me talk again about mid-biennium budget adjustments and review just on all the funds so that we can, but that is part of it, is outlining those costs and adding them to the budget or asking to do that.
Okay. And then I think my last comment here, I'm checking for my understanding, and I'm looking at your slide of estimate of 2024 levy, so towards the end in our packet, I believe it's page 38. Yep, you've got it.
Okay.
Well, I think it was the one after this
Okay.
or before this. It was a very short table.
Oh, yes. That one?
So 2023 actual, the cost to the property owner per an assessed value of $360,000 right now is $464 a year. Is that right?
Right.
A year, okay.
Yes.
So based off of, and I'm guessing that city staff is proposing the 1% plus banked with the the rate going down to 1.13. So that means that that cost to the property owner then still comes down.
Correct.
Okay,
It
so
does.
that's a win for property owner. Not still so much of a win for the city as that rate going down, so we don't get to collect nearly as much as we need for our general fund. But that just is what it is. That's what I'm understanding.
Yes,
With
the-
those assessed values coming down, or excuse me, assessed values going up, and then rate coming down. of
Decreases,
levy.
yes. And we are limited to raising, go back one. The 2023 levy, that second line down, we are limited to 1%. That, adding 1% to that. So that's the $131,000, which really is the highest it's the 1% times the highest lawful levy. I'm sorry, it's a tongue twister for me. So that 1% is our limit other than the bank capacity. That's the only other increase we can gain that related to existing property in the city. And then, of course, also the new construction. But without the bank capacity, the 1% is our limit.
Okay, well, thank you. I have my questions answered. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you for a thorough presentation.
Thank you.
Tell me.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. And I do appreciate the presentation by both of you. My question was, just I want to clarify what Councilwoman Roach said. Is the city asking for the 1% and a bank? I know in the past we've got recommendations from staff, what they would like to see us do. Is that what she was inferring as far as what the city's asking?
I guess we wanted to present all the options to council for you to see the impact. And then the new expenses definitely have the need, emphasize the need for that we have made commitments or entered into agreements like with our debt service and with the specialty kitchen and farmers market where those funds are needed to help support that new debt.
Okay, I do appreciate the clarification. I will say, you want to be good stewards in the city of Pasco. We do want to do our jobs. I do say the timing isn't the greatest considering what came out in the Tri-City Herald, and we're talking about the Lewis Street. I do realize things happen, but a little just frustrating that exact timing, talking about increasing taxes, and then we're talking about cost overruns. But we'll see how it goes.
And that is why we wanted to, not related to that, but we wanted to make sure that you could see where those funds were needed and what would influence the expenses of the general fund are these items, specifically the new debt service that was unbudgeted, the absorption of the specialty kitchen and the farmers market and community events that have happened this year that the city previously did not fund. And then animal control also, we've over the last couple of years learned a lot and now have had the opportunity to have experience running the animal shelter, and so there'll be some budgetary changes that help us do that well.
Thanks for the clarification. I know
Thank you.
supporting the animal shelter, of course, the 15 firefighters, that's all very important to myself and the community. So yeah, we'll see how this all plays out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Councilman Serrano, do you have any additional comments?
No, I don't think I have any tonight. Or, no, I think I'm good.
Again,
you for
Director
listening to me.
Buckley, and thank you, Mr. Rosno, for your presentations. And with that, we'll move on with our agenda. We are going to item number 8, hearings and council action on ordinances and resolutions relating thereto. None listed. Moving on to item number 9, ordinances and resolutions not relating to hearings. Item A, resolution number 4401, 4402, and 4403, change orders number 22 through 27 for the Lewis Street overpass and PSA amendments with JUB Engineers Incorporated and WSP USA Incorporated respectively for construction support and construction management. Director Worley.
Madam Mayor, members of council, you may recall last week, staff gave a presentation related to this topic, and we covered all of the different change orders and issues associated with this. And so here tonight, we're here to see if any public has any comments and then make a decision. But before we start that, I wanted to let you know that between last week and this week, there have been no changes to the information that was presented. And since the presentation last week, we've seen a lot of comments and questions online about these added costs. Some of the questions and comments raised concerns about, our ability to be able to estimate total project costs and specific costs related to the construction, engineering costs. And I just wanted to remind council that sometimes projects don't go as well as we'd like them to. And sometimes doing these estimates is difficult during times of rapidly changing economics within the country. And this one was bid at a time when we were right coming out of COVID. And so there was a lot of uncertainty in the project. And so bids came in much higher than we anticipated. Other comments, I think, questioned staff and our consultants' ability to manage this project, and I kind of wanted to address that. First, I wanted to point out that there is rarely a perfect project. And what I mean by that is a project that has absolutely no change orders whatsoever and no cost increases. They're designed by humans, they're constructed by humans, and we do the best we can. In my 37-year career of managing projects, this one has been one of the most difficult. And I've managed several bigger projects and many, many smaller ones. In the past 5.5 years, I can tell you, since being here in Pasco, that our engineering staff has successfully managed nearly 50 projects at a cost of approximately $300 million and have done so very successfully and done very, very well. So I just wanted to point that out. One might consider this a one-off, one of those projects that kind of didn't go as we had planned or we had wanted to. And it's unfortunate that it happened to be this particular project. But I want to emphasize that we have an obligation to complete the project. We are under contract. And I also wanted to let you know that the staff, engineering staff, is committed to continuing to pursue additional funding to help cover these cost increases as we do on every project. So I wanted to give you a little bit of assurance there that it does not stop here. We will continue to pursue. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for clarification, Director Worley. Are there any questions from council in regards to the presentation? Councilwoman Roach.
I just want to say, Director Worley, I appreciate you sharing the track record that your public works staff has in completing projects. I do believe it's a one-off, and I believe it's a really big, humongous project at a really unfortunate time when employment churn is through the roof and supply chain is broken and all of those things are contributing factors. And I think it's still, there's a gap between what we do as council and then what the public gets as information. And so we got to make up for that gap through communication as to why that cost, the original cost doesn't match what it is today. And so city staff have to help with overcoming that in the communications. The other thing I will say about the Lewis Street overpass is that, and I don't know what it is, I'll leave the math up to you to do, but that overall price tag is also probably applicable to decades worth of work that have gone into it. I don't know how many previous councils prior to us. We get to see it to the finish line, but what I think the value of this project is that may not be quantifiable in dollars is that it connects East Pasco to Central Pasco in a way that we haven't safely had for the residents of Pasco. And so I think it's a symbolic representation of this project, and I'm, while I still, stick by, I had some heartburn seeing some of those numbers. I still think it's worthy of pursuit. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you for your comments. Mayor Pro Tem Brown.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, that was a mic drop. She took my thunder. So I guess all I'm gonna tell you is thank you for the clarification, because I'm all about communication. And I think that communication is the key to success. And I think it'll minimize a lot of what we got hit with this week. And it was coming like bad traffic. But I like the fact that you took the moment to clear that up, clarify, especially the historical part of it. Sometimes we just inherit this stuff, right? But we have to find a way to work it out and ease the pain, especially to our constituents. But I think the explanation was perfect. It was awesome. Thank you, and good job, Zara. Thank you.
Councilman Melny.
Madam Mayor, I do want to echo Councilwoman Roach. It was very good, well said. I do appreciate that. Again, we don't know everything, but Mr. Worley, do you see this being the end, or is there anything else that we should be aware of? Or, is this the last time we're going to be asked for a change order, or?
It's difficult to say. I can tell you that we are working with the demolition of the underpass. When we started the project, we thought we were going to be able to fill it in and more or less bury it. And as I mentioned, or as was mentioned last week, that changed at the very last minute as we were entering into our easement contract with the railroad. And they require that we now remove everything to 6 feet below the tracks. That added additional cost to it. And so we are still working on how that's going to work in coordination with the railroad. But I also mentioned that we are also, again, pursuing additional funding to help offset those costs. And we may have some good news here in a couple weeks.
Okay, just to clarify, that none of it comes from the railroad. It actually would have to come from like the state or the federal government. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate your hard work with the staff. I know I've got some pretty bad emails and text, and it's frustrating. Again, being on the council, you want to have an answer, and I guess hindsight's 20/20. But again, we do count on staff to come up with stuff, and sometimes you just take the hit for stuff, and it's not your fault. But I do appreciate you guys trying your best and to mitigate costs is all applicable. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Councilman Serrano, do you have any comments?
No.
Okay. Any other comments from any other council members? I just want to add that Councilwoman Roach hit the nail on the head with her comment, and no, she did not take anyone's thunder. But yes, absolutely, absolutely. But the comment in regards to it being symbolic, it serves a purpose. For many, many years, this bridge has been in discussion. Underpass has been in discussion for improvements. It's deteriorating. It's falling apart. It needed to be replaced. Unfortunately, we're hit with the fact that it was during the time that it was very insecure, to where supplies were in high demand, I guess, or none. And it just impacted, and it's reflecting now. All these changes are now coming back and impacting. This underpass and now overpass has been in discussion with City Council for, if I'm not mistaken, between 15 to 20 years or something. So, and you're right, Councilwoman Roach, we are fortunate to now see this project to its end, to its completion. Unfortunately, we're also getting the fallback, the comments of people not knowing the full extent of this project. But we're here to improve the city of Pasco. We're here to improve vitality for the city of Pasco and connecting what used to be an area that was highly disconnected from Central Pasco to basic services. And so, this project is a huge project, and kudos to you for making sure that you're informing the council, informing the city of all these changes. And yes, it's costing, but again, as you stated twice, and you keep letting us know that your staff and city staff is looking for other ways to mitigate this cost. So thank you again for working on that, for all your work, and to your staff. Thank you. Councilman Campos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wasn't going to weigh in on this, but I think it's important to highlight the overarching responsibility of the council and what we do and why things are important. We had a presentation last week from Brianna Murray with Gordon Thomas Honeywell, our lobbyists, and she kind of made mention about how the eastern side of Washington didn't get any funding for roadway improvements. And so it just really illustrates the fact that, we could essentially have money in our kitty, so to speak, to help offset these costs already if we were to receive or had received money from that. So it's just really important to show that, our role as legislative bodies, and we help guide the hand essentially, and our lobbyists are hopefully going to continue to advocate for us. But it takes way more than just us. As Mr. Rosenau mentioned, if we were to pick up the phone and talk to our electeds at the commissioner level, if we were to pick up the phone and potentially talk to our electeds at the legislative or rep level, that might help get us some traction on the west side to maybe get us some priority so we can start receiving money for some of these bigger projects. I know the Road 76 improvement has been talked about, and hopefully that's one that maybe gets some priority when we start talking about allocating funds. But in general, comment that you said about adopting these things, I think it's really important that those council elects that are coming into here start looking at how important it is. It's not just the Monday nights, it's some of the other representative things that we do outside of it, the other bodies that we serve on that are extremely important to get our voices heard. And I hope that those in the audience are listening and take that to consideration, because it's not just what we do here on the dais. It's about what we do everywhere else. That's all.
Muted myself. With no further comments, thank you again for your comments, everyone. Director Worley, thank you for the presentation clarifications. Can I get several motions, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve resolution number 4401, authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 22-27 to the construction contract with Cascade Bridge LLC for the Lewis Street Overpass project.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilwoman Roach. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. Thank you. Next motion, please.
I move to approve resolution number 4402, authorizing the city manager to execute supplement number 5 to the professional services agreement with JUB Engineers Incorporated for the Lewis Street Overpass project.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilwoman Roach. All those in favor say aye.
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 What was that?
Councilman Serrano, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
I heard.
I said aye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. Thank you. And our tablets just did something funny.
Yes, real fun.
Can we get the next motion?
I move to approve resolution number 4403, authorizing the city manager to execute amendment number 2 for the professional services agreement with WSP USA Incorporated for the Lewis Street Overpass project.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilwoman Roach. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And it passes unanimously. Thank you for that. And then moving on to next item on the agenda, ordinance number 4694, amending PMC Title 21 related to street connectivity. Director Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Staff's been progressing on this item, which has been before this body before, to essentially improve our transportation planning practices and our approach for several years now. This item is specifically related to an amendment for street connectivity. What we have for you this evening are similar slides that you've seen in the past, but we do have a revised proposal that there is a recommendation from staff this evening. In short, connectivity, the title of the ordinance is in the transportation context is essentially the degree to which the system itself provides access to destinations, and there's 3 primary factors. That's the access itself, sort of the quality of the travel, connectivity, how direct a route is, or the directness of a route available, and then mobility, which is the ease of travel. So on the next slide, in terms of how connectivity is measured, there's several methods to measure connectivity. Fortunately, the United States Department of Transportation provides some general guidelines and references for what that would look like at the local level, from short block lengths to intersection density to prioritizing multimodal transportation planning practices. Safe and visible non-motorized facilities for bicyclists and pedestrians, for example, and a complete streets policy. And of note is that the city of Pasco currently has one of these in place, and that is the complete streets policy, which was adopted by council in 2018. On the next slide, wanted to highlight one of the goals of the council, which was that related to the community transportation network. And this is one of the primary factors that has been influencing staff work regarding this proposal, which has been to prioritize a functional transportation system that works for all users and modes. The current city council established that with the adoption of the transportation master plan. And what we have not been able to move forward yet are the development of policies and regulations that provide for greater connectivity, mobility, and accessibility and safety as a priority to actually implement the transportation plan. So on the next slide, going back a bit further, is that the city of Pasco has been quite vocal about the adoption of several policies, programs, and plans that have clearly indicated that more effective transportation planning is a goal and a goal that needs to be addressed. Council goals dating back well over a decade, the adoption of several major planning documents, and most recently the comprehensive plan and the transportation plan itself. These 2 plans together call out the need to address the state of the transportation system so that we are prepared to deal with, can accommodate the travel needs for both the residents that are here today and certainly the thousands of residents that will call Pasco home tomorrow. And briefly, sort of on the next slide, is a timeline of the proposal's history with the Planning Commission and City Council. Again, this was initiated in December of 2019. Several workshops and public hearings with the Planning Commission, 8 to be exact, workshops and updates to the Pasco City Council in 2021, followed by a recommendation. That date is incorrect. Sorry about the October 2020. That's incorrect. But there was a recommendation from the Planning Commission. And then we did receive direction from Council in August of 21 for some more collaboration and evaluation of the proposal itself as well. That was followed by follow-up workshops and public hearings with the Planning Commission last fall with the Planning Commission. On the next slide, certainly stakeholder outreach is always going to be a big element of any policy recommendation from the department. And while these meetings specifically call out those formalized meetings with the Home Builders Association of the Tri-Cities, I do want to call out that there were several other members and individuals and organizations involved with this process, most notably the participation from the Tri-City Association of Realtors. And you can, that list is certainly on the screen here. On the next slide, street connectivity, when we talk about the actual methodologies to measure sort of the effectiveness of connectivity within a community, one of those is the block length. And the maximum block length in the context of urban planning refers to the size of a block, typically measured as the length of the street, so from intersection to intersection, block to block. It's often influenced by factors such as walkability, transportation considerations, and overall neighborhood design. The idea behind maximum block lengths or shorter block lengths is that when there's a more grid-like system, you have the potential to reduce congestion and choke points at areas that don't often have those connectivity measures in place, because you simply create more options. So instead of having one route, you may have two, you may have three, or you may have four. And so when you have that kind of in place over a broader portion of the city, you're able to promote certainly more options, but also quality of life aspects such as walkability. They can also encourage alternative transportation, particularly that's helpful in denser environments, which Pasco is beginning to see. And because of the reliability of having more options when located next to destination centers, they can also reduce commute times and trips themselves. What you see on this screen is a sample of communities across the state of Washington with their maximum block lengths as codified in their various municipal codes or county codes. And as you can see, third on the list is there's no alphabetical order, not in order in any fashion, is that Paso's current block length is 1,320 feet, which is a quarter mile. And compared to our neighboring jurisdiction of the city of Kennewick, certainly significantly higher. Theirs is approximately 900 feet. One of the concerns expressed was that a proposal of this nature is more appropriate for denser communities, denser districts, particularly central business districts. But as you can see on the screen is that the communities of Cle Elum, Spokane County, not the city, but Spokane County, Burlington, Washington, Walla Walla, Ellensburg, College Place, etc. This is a standard that's in place in many communities because it's essentially a fabric of the built form. This is how many communities were established back when their ordinances were first created. There's a lot of history behind the street patterns up here in the United States. And somewhere along the ways, roughly in the 70s or so, the city of Pasco went from having a maximum block length of in the mid 400s or so, as you can see in the neighborhood we're here in City Hall today, to roughly 3 times that at around 1320. So obviously just wanted to demonstrate that this isn't a proposal that is typically seen in just bigger cities or more urban, denser downtown districts. This is something that is applied universally across most communities in the United States. On the next couple of slides, we just kind of highlight the proposed standards, particularly the revisions where those have been made. And on this slide is the proposed facility spacing standards or the functional classification system, essentially. A city street classification system is a critical tool for managing transportation. It's typically organized by hierarchy, implemented by developing and maintaining a functional system that categorizes streets according to their ability to move traffic, provide access to adjacent properties, from local streets to neighborhood collectors to arterials and your highway system. And other than the most recently adopted comprehensive plan and transportation plan, which serve as guides only, Pasco does not have a tool in the municipal code or in the regulatory framework that clearly identifies the development of our functional classification system. So the table shown here was the table recommended from the Transportation System Master Plan. We did propose a change to the local access street / bike ped facilities of 660 feet, but otherwise this is a recommendation from the city's adopted Transportation Master Plan. And on the next slide are a proposal for access management standards. As you can see here, it identifies prints that functional classification system along that top row, along with the minimum distances for spacing on the left, and with the numerical requirements in the table. And access management standards provide safe and efficient access to the transportation system for all users. It's a strategically guide vehicle access points along roadways adjacent to development, ensuring safe and efficient use of the transportation network. And other than the residential driveway spacing that's currently in the Pasco Municipal Code, we don't have any guidelines available to safely manage access on the public street network. And in fact, the Public Works project that took place on Road 68 several years ago was, I think, primarily an access management improvement project because of the way the driveway spacing was constructed along Road 68, which led to accidents, congestion, etc. Having these outright in the code will help prevent that in the future. And then on the next slide is the proposed street connectivity standards. And this is obviously a table that has dramatically shrunk since it's last been in front of the Planning Commission, and certainly last since it's been in front of the City Council. And the proposal for the street connectivity standards is defined again as the measurement of a system of streets with multiple routes, etc. And simply stated, it's the degree to which options and access are provided for residents to get from point A to point B, whether that's from home to work, home to school, school to work, etc. This updated proposal would require a maximum block length of 660 feet for public access to public access. And that is substantially different than the proposal that was last shared with council, which was public street to public street. And essentially what staff is proposing is that there would be two options, and the dedication of either right-of-way for a public street or the dedication of a non-motorized pathway. And the big difference with that is the non-motorized pathway connection requires significantly less dedication of land. You're talking, maybe 18 to 30 feet maximum, compared to 60 feet a dedication required for your local access street. We believe that the revised proposal meets the intention of the ordinance itself, which was to address the extremely long blocks, which are experienced primarily north of Interstate 182, and two was to provide more access in places where you'd want to see that increased access. So in particular, there was a recent kind of a double public works project that took place on Burns Road, just east of Broadmoor Boulevard, where there was the construction of the multi-use pathway, which gets significant use, which is great. But along with that, there was a multi-use pathway that kind of connected a portion of those neighborhoods south of the schools to those school sites themselves, because without that connection, essentially would have been more than a quarter mile from any resident who was 100 feet away from the school to actually navigate around the neighborhoods to get back to the school itself. So we believe that the proposed option approach offers both the opportunity for either the dedication of a public street when that public street makes sense in the transportation review, or the dedication of land for that non-motorized connection, which helps a variety of quality of life goals for the city of Pasco. Along with that, we do recommend that there is a maximum block length for public street to public street, and staff is proposing that that maximum be 990 feet, which is certainly higher than the 660 that was proposed initially. And it would be slightly higher than the city of Kennewick's at 900 feet, but with that provision of that non-motorized connection, it helps increase access and mobility options for all residents and businesses, etc. So on the next slide, there's an example of what that connection could look like on the left, with the proposal where you see, in this case, a cul-de-sac, where that access is put in to increase connection where one wouldn't be provided in the past. And on the right, there's that Public Works project just south of Burns Road, or connecting neighborhoods to that Burns Road corridor to the two school sites up to the north. And on the next slide is illustration or graphic on the left of what that could look like, kind of as an example, and certainly an illustration of what that would look like from the street perspective as well when it's a non-motorized connection versus a public street. On On the next slide, again, want to call out the themes, the benefits, and obviously the impacts of our proposal. And the themes of this proposal go back to access, connectivity, efficiency, mobility, safety, etc. And we believe that the proposal before council this evening addresses the community input that we received over several iterations of our various major planning projects and programs, the surveys, including that from the Transportation System Master Plan, and also the residents who respond via the National Citizen Survey. It's implementation and recommendation of best practices and several of our major planning policy documents. There is a benefit in the sense that there is more compliance and consistency in terms of what's being built, and it is a dependable development pattern. In fact, while we don't have these regulations in place today, staff has worked effectively with some of our newer developments, trying to put in as much connectivity as allowed under the current provisions, and we have not lost any developments overall. We've actually increased the number of lots because, quite frankly, it's easier to develop with a square versus a weird polygon of sorts. And obviously the impacts of any development-related proposal on the PMC, which would be the regulation itself and the cost. We believe that the proposal before council today has balanced those out effectively and fairly, and meets the intent of the council priorities. On the next slide, want to summarize sort of the proposal support that this amendment has received over the past several years from the Benton Franklin Council of Governments, Benton Franklin Transit, Visit Tri-Cities, Bike Tri-Cities, and the Washington State Department of Transportation. In fact, the Washington State Department of Transportation, in a memorandum this summer to the state legislature, used the evaluation and the research as part of this proposal, and included that in a state report on methods to reduce vehicle miles traveled. So the City of Pasco's policy recommendation was used as a best practice from Washington State Department of Transportation to the state legislature. And just recently, last week, the Washington State Transportation Commission was here in the City of Pasco for several presentations and a meeting, and the commission reached back out to city staff and had asked for more information so that they could utilize this policy recommendation as well, and include that in the state transportation plan update, which is a fairly significant document because it serves as sort of a guide for all jurisdictions in the state of Washington, and also is a federal requirement to ensure that the state is complying with federal requirements for transportation. And obviously, this support has been well vetted and evaluated by city departments, Public Works, Pasco Fire Department in particular, because of the intended, not the intended, but the benefits of a well-connected transportation system certainly help with their operations. In fact, the recently adopted Pasco Fire Master Plan referenced development patterns and connectivity as either a potential impact that is beneficial or consequential to emergency services. And on the next slide, I wanted to call out, this might be difficult to read, and while it's certainly great to have the support from state agencies, it's even better to have it at the local level. And in particular, the comment from Ben Franklin Transit, which supports the policy amendment as to create a more walkable and transit-friendly city. And then call attention to the comment at the bottom, which we received last week from the Government Affairs Committee staff at the Tri-City Association of Realtors, with essentially we may have just found a win-win for everybody. So staff is certainly excited about this proposal to council this evening. Happy to answer any questions. I think the next slide is I wanted to touch on maybe one more, and that was that the potential impacts that this may have on the cost of housing, the loss of developable lots, and as I mentioned just a few moments ago, that as of today, we have not lost any lots because of our current application of our connectivity policies. We don't have a regulation, so it's simply trying to increase connectivity where it's feasible. There's been more lots developed than not. But quite frankly, Pasco has been one of the leaders in the Northwest who address housing with various changes to the municipal code, various changes to our policy framework, et cetera. Since this proposal began in December of 2019, the Hearing Examiner has approved more than 1,400 homes. We currently have roughly 4,300 homes that are either in development or plan review or are under construction. That 4,300 number represents approximately 30% of our forecasted comprehensive plan growth target of roughly 22,000 housing units. That's important because 60% of all those homes are not in the Broadmoor area, and that's a criteria that's important because the connectivity standards are in place in the Broadmoor area, but they're not in place anywhere else other than the brand new mixed use district, which doesn't have anything yet. So 60% of the new housing that is being built in the city of Pasco does not have access management, transportation connectivity standards associated with those developments. Certainly there's implementation of best practices the best we can, but in terms of meeting community input, addressing community input and council goals, those aren't reflective in those unit developments. On the next slide is a summary of the objective of this proposal's intent to meet various council goals, and that concludes staff's presentation. Again, there is a revised recommendation for City Council review this evening, and appreciate the opportunity to present this to Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Gonzalez. This is a very good presentation. We have comment from Councilman Campos.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just Director Gonzalez, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm just going to briefly summarize what I believe I just heard is that for years we've heard people complain about the way Road 68 was developed and fears that Road 100 is going to be the same. And instead of being reactive, your staff and yourself decided to be proactive and develop this plan, which is going to help us guide and come up with better alternatives and solutions to things that we anticipate happening in the future. Right. Yep. And then on top of that, you know, we've got some stuff that's grandfathered in. I just, out of curiosity, Ellensburg was incorporated in 1883. Walla Walla was incorporated in January of 1862. That's horse and buggy time. And so I can imagine everyone in those days, it's a lot easier to just walk down to the saloon, right? Or the ice house instead of hitching up the mules to your buggy. So just, you know, having alternatives in the city, I think is really great. My neighbor, his property, before he split it and built a place, he had a shed out there, and he come to find out that it was a mule shed. We lived in houses that were built in the 1920s, and you kind of get that little bit of a throwback. You don't realize that living in the moment that people live like that here, but the reality is, yeah. And so it's interesting, some of the history there, but reality is, again, just to summarize the presentation, is we're doing the right things to set future planners, future developers up for success and mitigate our citizens' concerns. We've got a great opportunity to be better than how we had planned previously. Again, it's always better to be proactive rather than reactive. And again, just thanks to staff for hearing what the citizens have been kind of saying for years and taking the reins on this.
Thank you for your comments, Councilman Campos. Councilwoman Roach.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Director Gonzalez, I'm going to try to summarize. This was a really comprehensive presentation for how much work has been done over a long period of time. And I want to say, you know, it's kudos, Councilmember Campos, not only to staff, which I think do the bulk of the work in creating that transportation master plan, but council as well, recognizing that we need one, and we prioritize having master plans for the different departments of the city, as well as having input in those and community input in those. So joint effort all around, from residents to staff to council on it. And I think those dividends are paying off, as we're seeing just through this presentation. In that, you know, you brought up a couple things. One, I'd like to say that you outlined the ways that you have, who you've met with in stakeholder groups. Just in that slide with the quotes from the transit, that was going to be one of my questions, is how does this impact those different multimodal transportation organizations that are going to serve the residents of Pasco. And so seeing that's something different that I haven't seen before. And I have been here since 2011, not in a council capacity, but in a planning commission one. So hearing that, it's something that I've heard the input of the public over and over again. Where are we collecting stakeholder information beyond just a planning commission or a city council meeting? And so I just want to give kudos to you in documenting some of that and bringing it back to us, because there are those one-off comments that are made at during public comment saying, council and city staff, you don't meet with the developer community, you don't meet with the realtor community, and that's not necessarily true. And so I'm happy you listed and outlined some of those dates in which that ongoing conversation has been had through this planning of complete streets and transportation master plan. To go back to 2011, that is something that is a resolution that I had a hand in recommending to the previous council, Resolution 3021. And that was 2011, I had 0 kids. And 2024, I have 3 kids. And I'm still waiting to see that adoption of bicycle lanes in Pasco. And I know it's happening very incrementally. You spoke about one particular area south of Burns off of Broadmoor. And that is near my neighborhood. And that has dramatically changed our way of moving through from home to school and home to play on the weekends at, Ray Reynolds track and doing all of that in a way that is promoting public safety, because it wasn't safe before. While it was fun to walk in the sand, you couldn't ride your bike in the sand. And I just want to reinforce this for staff, and this has to do with Public Works too, because Director Worley, you had a hand in making that happen fast and making it happen with the crosswalk with the school district. I know there's probably a ton of parents who want to say thank you to you, and they're not here, so I'm going to say thank you on their behalf. But that access is more safe than going through the neighborhood on sidewalks and somebody pulling out their car, reversing their car out of their driveway. So I love that you have worked with, I saw Jeff Lucy from the Home Builders Association, and then the email from the Tri-Cities Realtors Association praising the win-win and the compromise in the maximum city block length. And I just want to say good job on working on that with them and bringing those stakeholders along. I think that's great, and especially with the exemption or the exception of adding that type of non-motorized lane. I think that's a win-win for both city residents. Let's say it's a triple win. It's a trifecta win. So, yeah, I can't tell you how much I appreciated this presentation and learning all this.
Give me just a second. Councilman Serrano, do you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, just to make sure I understood when we looked at the graphic where everything was listed out at 660 feet. Mr. Gonzalez, did I see that major arterials are going to be capped at that length? Or did I misinterpret that chart?
I think on the if you go back one more slide.
I think it was that one back there that you were just on, the one with all the 660s. One more.
Oh, you know
So
what? My apologies. My apologies. Okay, so yeah, that's actually the chart needed to be updated. It should just say public access to public access is a maximum of 660 feet. That so you.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to be seeing stop signs or stop lights on the next, say, Burden Boulevard at 660 feet. Obviously, we'd never get anywhere if that were the case. I just, again, seeing what I saw, didn't quite catch something if I missed it. that was my primary concern, and then obviously how much pavement we'd be seeing throughout the city if that were the case. So now that that's answered, I think my question, that was my primary concern. So with that, I appreciate what staff's done, both for outreach and work on this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Milne.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to say thank you, Director Gonzalez, for the email and, of course, putting in your presentation that you are working with the different developers, the Tri-City Association of Realtors and the Home Builders Association. It meant a lot to me to see this in there because I know we've brought things up and sometimes you don't see it, but I do want to give you kudos. Thank you, and I do appreciate it and feel that it's only fair to acknowledge when you go above and beyond what we expect, so thank you.
Director Gonzalez, all I can say is that yes, I'll add to Councilwoman Roach's comments. You were around, I think you were around 2018. Previous council member Ruben Alvarado was a huge advocate and proponent for multimodal access throughout the city. So I hope he's watching. If not, I will make sure he sees this presentation because he would be very, very proud to see this. And one other question. For the AWC conference coming up, did Pasco already get the Municipal Excellence Award for this project?
But we'll definitely apply if we have opportunity to.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you for that. And above all, just thank you for all the hard work on this. Director Worley, you get credit for this as well. But thank you again for this presentation. Are there any other questions or comments? Seeing no other questions or comments, we normally don't do this, but there is a request from within council chambers for some comment. Like I said, we don't normally do this. It's up to the chair to allow any comment, and so we'll allow. Is it Mr. Bauman? Do you have some comments?
For making this exception. I recognize, and I've had people tell me that sometimes the council gets tired of the sound of my voice, and I apologize for that. But I do care about my community, and there's a couple of things with this. I was just sitting there researching, and I haven't gotten an email about this I can't find it back until February of this year. And so that piece of it is certainly very disappointing to me. A couple of things that the council committed to doing that I haven't seen and I don't believe has been done. And the development community has said this is going to drive up the cost of development in Pasco. And this is due to the decision that appears to be prepared to being made tonight. It will significantly drive up the cost. The development community asked, and the council appeared to have a consensus of agreement that night that they would do a cost analysis of what this would, of the of the cost that this would increase in housing. An absence in the report tonight was one of our neighboring cities has a block length that's significantly longer than this that was absent in that. So we're going to the west side of the state and doing comparisons there. However, one of the cities across the river from us, Richland, has a 1,500 foot block length, and it seems to work well there. Disappointed in this being brought. I had no idea it was going to be here, and I've certainly tried to be very engaged and involved in this process. And again, thank you for making this exception to allow me to make a comment.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
if you could just, since you did make the exception to allow one person to speak, if you could just ask if anybody else could speak so that there's no accusation that only one person got to speak.
Thank you. And with that being said, is there anyone else that wishes to add any other comment on this particular matter? Second call for any additional comment on this particular matter from anyone in council chambers. Third and final call for additional comment. Thank you, Mr. Ferguson, for clarification on that. Your comments are noted. Thank you for bringing that up. I do see that we have support from home builders associations and other organizations that had some input in this. And so, again, just thank you for your comments. And with that, can I get a motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve ordinance number 4694, amending sections 21.05.020, purpose 21.05.030, application of this title 21.05.04, 040, exceptions 21.05.060, approval required 21.10.020, terms defined, chapter 21.15, streets, and section 21.20.010, block length, and within Title 21, Pasco Urban Area Subdivision, regulations of the Pasco Municipal Code, and further authorize publication by title only.
There's a motion. Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Campos. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
There's 5 ayes, 1 nay. And it passes unanimous. Well, it passes. Thank you for that. And so with that, we move on to item number 10, unfinished business. There's none listed. Item number 11, new business, none listed. Item number 12, miscellaneous discussion, City Manager Lincoln.
Council, first up, I don't suppose you want to describe your slide here since you already mentioned the gathering.
So here we have pictures of, you can see Colin, Mr. Hastings there from Pasco Chamber. And in the gray sweater is Stephanie, Representative Stephanie Bernard. Myself, just talking up the storm, I guess. But in the red bags, like I said, this was in collaboration with DoorDash. They had a lot of their representatives come to Pasco. And just giving back to the community. That's all they wanted to do, just give back to the community. They connected with the churches, all the, there was about 4 churches or pastors from local churches represented within this food giveaway. Again, it was at the Morning Star Baptist Church, a historical site. So I was very grateful that they were there. At that particular church. You can't see behind the red bags towards the back. There's boxes full of peanut butter, rice, there's jelly, it was just full of groceries for people that showed up. It was very well organized. They would go around the back of the church. It was like a drive-through. So they would come around the back of the church to the front where you see the tables. They didn't have to get out of their cars. All the volunteers were putting everything in their car. So it was very well organized, very well attended. Kudos to the Baptist Church.
And last week we were also fortunate to host the State Transportation Commission here in Pasco. It was quite the eventful 2 days. Mayor, you addressed the group and provided the welcoming to them. Mr. Worley and his team did a great job of really organizing the whole event. We provided a tour of many of our transportation projects that are ongoing or upcoming to the commission. I think it was very well received. And then several of our staff had the opportunity to address the commission on the initial day to really talk about the the wins that we've had over the last several years of developing the transportation network, and even let them know that we certainly still have priorities that are outstanding. And I think it was a very collaborative couple of days. Following the first day, representatives from other cities, including the tribes, came and made presentations to the commission as well. So it was something that we don't always get the opportunity to do, to host the commission here, but they're a group that works very closely with the governor and his team when it comes to how they prioritize certain transportation projects and put those in front of him. And I think that the city of Pasco really shined in the couple of days that we had them here. I don't know if Director Worley had anything to add. No, it was just a good couple of days. And then I think Director of Fund has a couple of updates as well.
Yes, I do. So, a couple of events, activities to share. Of course, in the city of Pasco, our first one I would discuss is our first annual Wreaths of America event, which is going to be held December 16th out at City View Cemetery. Our goal is to place wreaths on all our veteran grave sites, which are just over 900. Currently, we have about 200 wreaths already pledged. So we're looking for those interested to please visit the city's website to sign up until November 28th. Next up, I want to talk about Winterfest. That's coming up December 9th. We're continuing to make plans for that, but we're still looking for food and drink vendors, craft style vendors, and vendors that want to do kid or info type activities. Again, you can check on the city's website or our social media to sign up. And if you have any vendors that would like to participate, please refer them to us so we can fill up Peanuts Park with a lot of great activities that day. Next up, we have our 45th annual Cable Bridge Run, which is also on December 16th. Offers 3 races, our 1 mile, 5K, and 10K. Registration is open online. If you're not into running, we're also looking for volunteers, so you can either sign up and or volunteer at our city's website. And then last, I want to announce that our city offices will be closed Thursday and Friday in observance of Thanksgiving. However, many of our staff, including police, fire, and our public works department, will continue working to keep the city functioning during those times. So we appreciate their efforts while many of us get to spend time with our families. So thank you.
Great. I do have another reminder, real quick reminder. I mentioned it earlier, but I want to make sure to give people the opportunity to apply to the Arts and Culture Commission and to the Housing Authority Board of City of Pasco and Franklin County Commission. There's many openings. Please get involved and speak up and advocate for your areas. Several vacancies. So again, go on the City of Pasco's website or reach out to 509-544-3096, 509-344-544-3096. And that's it for me. And with that, Councilman Campos, you have a comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The street connectivity got me thinking. Deputy Cook, you can maybe help me out here, but if I recall, we've had a hit and run on 20th, I think twice in the last 2 years, so we're averaging about once a year. A cyclist, I think, was hit here not too long ago on 20th, and last year we had a fatality. I think a 76-year-old lady was hit on 20th. So just talking about street connectivity, I just wanted to illustrate that. It seems as if down 20th by Fiesta Foods, not Fiesta Foods, I'm sorry, what's that supermarket? Supermex and Albertsons. I know Albertsons has a crosswalk, but Supermex doesn't. So I wanted to illustrate that as maybe being an area of concern. Maybe these are just the only 2 accidents that have got a little bit of publicity because of the severity of them. But I've seen, I think, social media posts from Pasco PD, I think the bike accident, et cetera. So just something to think about. Maybe what's required, there may be an additional crosswalk or some additional lighting in those areas, especially, man, this time of year is rough. If we can get our lobbyists next year to abolish daylight savings, that would be super pumped with me. I'd be fine with that. But seriously, I think maybe some lighting in that area would be helpful. But Deputy Chief, if you've got anything you can add to that, that'd be great. In other words, I've got nothing.
We work well with Public Works, and I think those areas get scrutinized when we're having those accidents. The main thoroughfares are dangerous to have pedestrians utilizing the roadway. with cars that are moving that fast. So.
Thank you. Councilman Serrano, do you have anything to add to miscellaneous discussion?
I do not, thank you, Mayor.
Okay. And with that, we'll move on to our next item on the agenda, a fan favorite, executive session. We do have a need for executive session. City Council will now meet in executive session to discuss performance of a public employee per RCW 42.30.1101G. The council will be in executive session for 20 minutes. From 9:30 to 9, and we will add 5 minutes, 5-minute break. So we'll be back at 9:55. Thank you. It is 9:55. We do have a need for an extension of another 5 minutes to return at 10 o'clock. Thank you. It is 10:02. There is a need for an extension of 10 minutes to return at 10:12. Thank you. It is 10:14 and we are back from executive session. This meeting is officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your families. Good night.